What's the big deal about the big story? We're exploring Hasipur Hagadol, the big story, by the backyard, HaChatzer HaAchorit. And credit to Janine Abu Mazen from Unsplash for this image from the West Bank. We're calling it the West Bank specifically for this song because this is what this song is referring to. Background on the band. The backyard is actually an amalgam of several bands, or even a super band. The Balkan Beatbox, that's these guys here. They came from Balkan Beatbox, still perform with the Balkan Beatbox, and they've joined forces with a guy from Devik, which is a famous and successful indie band in Israel, famous for one of their songs, In the Name of Democracy. And the God King Emperor of Lyrics in Israel, Yankele Rotblit. Yankele Rotblit is famous for having written the lyrics for, among many others, Shir LaShalom, Kama Tov Shabata Habaita, Darkenu, and many other fantastic hits. So they've joined together and just set up a Head Start project in 2013, just asking their fans in all these three different directions if they wanted to back the creation of an album together. They got their money pretty quickly, and they're now on to their third album. So with that little bit of background, it's worth just going straight into the song itself. If you take a look up in the top right corner with that little eye, you'll see a link to the YouTube song with translated subtitles, and also you'll be able to click on the link down below. See you in a minute. So according to Rotblit, the big story begins in the Bible, which raises the question, does it really? And should it? Why do you think that Rotblit begins with the Bible, and what's the significance of this choice? That when we're saying that the story of this place, of Israel, begins in the Bible, what's being ruled in and what's being ruled out? And of course the question would be then, if you were telling the big story of the state of Israel, where would you begin the story? Does the story begin in the Bible? Does it begin with the start of the exile? Does it begin with, the Dreyfus trial, with the first Zionist Congress, with the Declaration of Independence in 1948? When, for you, does the big story of the State of Israel begin? Acre by acre, reclaiming the desert, reclaiming guilt, for there was a war. Now, this is a translation commissioned by Yankele Rotblit, and obviously it takes some artistic leeway in reclaiming the desert, reclaiming guilt. The Hebrew is even more impressive, because Hafrahat Hashmama, reclaiming the desert, literally speaking, it's more making the desert bloom. Hafraha comes from the word for flower. So making the desert bloom, and then Hafrahat Hashma, there's a different letter, the ch instead of the h, means actually dismissing guilt. So we've got this fantastic differentiation between making the desert bloom and dismissing the guilt. And what the translator's done is he's made the words the same because the sounds are similar. Hafrahat hashmama, hafrachat hashma. So both words play in with each other, both ashma and shmama. Shmama is the desert, and ashma is guilt, and hafrachat and afrahat are these two different words for reblossoming and dismissing. Amazing language that Yankele Rotblit brings to this song. And then we move into the key stuff, when he's talking about what the left in Israel and Palestinian supporters would call the occupation of the West Bank. There is no mistaking that when he refers to a concrete wall in shades of grey, Rotblit is referring to this wall. This is the separation barrier or separation wall that Israeli forces have built throughout the West Bank and along the Green Line. This is actually a photo I took of the view from the Aida refugee camp in Bethlehem of the concrete wall in shades of grey. And then beyond we have The persecuted became a cruel persecutor. How does this line meet with your gut, hearing that idea? That the persecuted, and I'm guessing that he's referring to the Jewish people who have historically been persecuted, became a cruel persecutor. How does that fit with your guts? What does it make you feel? Do you reject the very idea, reject the comparison, or take it to heart? This line, two peoples ever at each other's throat. This line reminded me of a cartoon image that Shai Charka once sketched for me in a group. He was trying to explain the relationship between Jews and Palestinians in this area, but using the image of Jews as mice in an indirect reference to Art Spiegelman's mouse. So he drew the Jew as the mouse and the Palestinians as the cat. And as you can see, he has the mouse actually far stronger than the cat, holding the cat by the neck, and at the same time absolutely terrified of the cat, and the cat has its claws in the arm of the mouse. Two peoples ever at each other's throat. Finally, this long verse which asks all the questions. They say it's too early, and they say it's too late, and they say it could be, and they say it's already decided, waiting for the coming of president or emperor, messiah, prophet, general or alien who knows how to solve the unsolvable. Bring hope again. Show that it's possible to live in peace between river and sea. And I'm always left at the end of this song asking myself, is this an optimistic end or a pessimistic end? And where would you place your emphasis? Would you be one of the optimists who says it's still early, there's still time, it could yet come? Or are you one of those who says it's too late now, it's decided, zenigzar, it's fate? And wishing us all the best of luck to one way somehow show that it's possible to live in peace between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. This has been What's the Big Deal About the Big Story, brought to you by Makom, the Challenging Israel Education Lab of the Jewish Agency, in a project together with Moishe House, generously funded by the Jim Joseph Foundation.